the faint-hearted. But now to something that won't make your heart race. Lauren Berkowitz is an installation artist who was engaging with issues around art and sustainability long before it became fashionable.
I had a very traditional training as a sculptor. I learnt the trades of bronze casting, plaster casting. I remember doing quite toxic things at art school, I recall. Actually putting my arms into a vat of blue resin at one point. And I remember one of the teachers at the time said, well, you wouldn't want to be pregnant doing that because you'd have a baby with two heads. Health and safety at that time weren't really a big issue. I think the thinking was if you're going to be a sculptor, you had to really get down and get dirty. After art school, I kind of went through a transitional period where I really started thinking about the materials I want to use and materials that weren't going to be at a cost to my health and also a cost to the environment. I really started looking at my surroundings, looking at the materials which were lying in the street, and I began collecting and stockpiling different materials. I started collecting white pages, telephone books that people were throwing out. And I also started collecting white plastic bags. I had hundreds of these bags. Sometimes I have a very clear idea as to what I'd like to do when I just go about creating the work in quite a methodical manner. But other times the work kind of evolves quite organically.
I think we'll spend most of tomorrow just filling in all the gaps.
Lauren Berkowitz is a very interesting Melbourne-based artist. In this exhibition, she's presenting two works. The first work is a recreated piece called Bags. It's a work she first made in 1994, and she was living in Manhattan in New York at that time, and she was, I guess, fascinated by this culture of excess, consumerism, of waste, and so she started to create this vast sculptural corridor of these bags inflated with air that is almost like a kind of breathing giant lung.
It's important that the viewer gets a sense of the physicality of the material and the density of the material. The work has 3,500 bags, and I think they become aware of the enormity of wastage that is apparent just through our daily consumption.
Lauren has made a second work in the exhibition, a new work which comprises living plants, about 600 plants in total. What Lauren was looking at when she made the work was this tableau of medicinal and edible plants that reflect this part of the world, both pre- and post-European colonisation.
I've got some interesting indigenous plants here. This is called warrigal greens. It was an important plant when the convicts arrived to ward off the scurvy, and also the Aborigines had it as one of their foodstuffs.
In one way, you could describe her plant installation as being kind of like a still life, you know, almost like a historical still life painting, except that instead of being a static painting that's frozen in time, it's a living, breathing, changing, growing, edible sculpture.
I do gain a lot of inspiration just through the daily activity of going shopping, going to the market, looking at the seasonal produce. When you look at a work like Cornucopia, which does have an incredible array of grains and pulses and herbs and spices, it really shows the kind of diversity and beauty of the natural world and also its fragility. I don't want my work to just be a didactic one-liner. I want it to be quite open to interpretation. I really am interested in creating objects that are immersive and do engage the public.
You can see Lauren's work in the Art for a Changing World exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Sydney until the end of the month. Now,